In August of 1994, the small logging town of Oakville, Washington, experienced one of the most bizarre and unexplained phenomena in modern American history. What started as a typical Pacific Northwest rainstorm would evolve into a medical mystery that continues to puzzle experts to this day and left residents wondering if they had become the victims of biological warfare, extraterrestrial activity, or something even more sinister. The morning of August 7th began like any other in Oakville, a town of about 665 residents situated in Grays Harbor County. The sky was overcast and a light drizzle was falling, nothing unusual for this region of Washington state. But at around 3 a.m. something changed. The rain became gelatinous. Instead of water droplets, transparent, jelly-like blobs, each roughly the size of a rice grain, began falling from the sky. Sonny Barclift, who owned and operated a farm in the area, was one of the first to encounter the strange substance. She described the material as crystal clear and gelatinous, like bits of jellyfish scattered across her property. Initially, she didn't think much of it. Strange things sometimes fall from the sky in rural areas, but within hours of coming into contact with the substance, Sonny began experiencing severe dizziness, nausea, and difficulty breathing. She wasn't alone. Her mother, who had been helping on the farm that morning, developed similar symptoms. As the day progressed, reports began flooding in from across Oakville. Police officer David Lacey was on patrol when the gelatinous rain began falling. He reported that his windshield became covered with the substance, and using his wipers only seemed to smear it around, making visibility nearly impossible. By that afternoon, Officer Lacey was also ill, suffering from symptoms that he described as worse than any flu I've ever had. Over the next 3 weeks, the blobs fell from the sky 6 more times. Each incident was followed by reports of illness among Oakville's residents. In total, more than 50 people reported becoming sick after coming into contact with the substance. The symptoms were consistent: severe fatigue, breathing difficulties, nausea, dizziness, and in some cases, blurred vision. Several residents developed deep, purple-colored bruises and skin rashes that lasted for weeks. What made the situation even more alarming was the effect the substance had on local wildlife. In the areas where the blobs had fallen, residents reported finding dead birds, dozens of them. Cats and dogs that had been outside during the falls became ill, and several died. Local veterinarian Dr. Richard Mason conducted preliminary examinations of some of the deceased animals and found evidence of internal bleeding and organ failure. The story caught the attention of Washington State Department of Health microbiologist Mike McDowell. When samples of the substance were brought to his lab, what he discovered was astounding. The blobs contained human white blood cells. Not just traces, but 2 distinct types of human white blood cells were present in the gelatinous material. This discovery transformed what might have been dismissed as an environmental anomaly into something far more disturbing. Further analysis revealed the presence of Pseudomonas fluorescens, a relatively common bacteria found in soil and water. However, the concentration of these bacteria was unusually high, and they appeared to be arranged in a way that suggested they had been engineered. This finding led some researchers to speculate that the Oakville blobs might have been the result of military testing gone wrong. The theory wasn't entirely far-fetched. The Navy had been conducting exercises off the Washington coast during this period, and there were reports of military aircraft in the area during the time of the falls. Additionally, Joint Base Lewis McChord, a major military installation, was located just 50 miles north of Oakville. However, military officials steadfastly denied any involvement in the incidents. Adding to the mystery was the fact that samples of the substance seemed to disappear or degrade before thorough testing could be completed. Dr. David Little, who examined samples at the Washington State Department of Ecology, reported that the material would disintegrate when exposed to heat or sunlight, making preservation extremely difficult. By the time more sophisticated testing methods could be employed, many of the samples had broken down completely. The events in Oakville sparked numerous theories. Some believed it was a failed military experiment, possibly testing new biological weapons or weather modification techniques. Others suggested it might have been debris from a commercial airliner's chemical toilet, though this was quickly dismissed due to the substance's composition and the repeated nature of the falls. One of the more unusual theories came from local resident Dottie Hearn, who had lived in Oakville for over 40 years. She suggested that the blobs might have been connected to jellyfish. Her theory was that Navy bombing exercises had pulverized a school of jellyfish out in the Pacific, and the remains had been carried inland by storm clouds. While this might sound far-fetched, similar incidents have been documented throughout history, including a famous case in Bath, England, in 1894. Perhaps the most disturbing theory came from those who suggested that the blobs were deliberately engineered biological weapons, tested on an unsuspecting small town. They pointed to the presence of human white blood cells and the engineered bacteria as evidence that this was no natural phenomenon. The timing of the falls, always occurring in the early morning hours when few people would be outside to witness them, added to their suspicions. 29 years later, the Oakville blobs remain one of America's most perplexing medical mysteries. While the substance stopped falling as mysteriously as it had begun, the impact on the community lasted far longer. Many residents reported ongoing health issues, though no definitive link was ever established between these long-term problems and exposure to the blobs. The case files remain open, but answers seem as elusive now as they were in 1994. The samples are gone. Many of the original witnesses have moved away or passed on, and the military maintains its denial of any involvement. What we're left with are questions. What really fell from the sky over Oakville? Why did it contain human cellular material? And perhaps most importantly, could it happen again? The legacy of the Oakville blobs serves as a reminder of how vulnerable small communities can be, and how quickly the ordinary can become extraordinary. It's a story that combines elements of environmental mystery, potential government conspiracy, and public health crisis, all centered around a substance that fell from the sky and vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. For the residents of Oakville, the incident remains more than just an unusual chapter in their town's history. It represents a period of fear, uncertainty, and unanswered questions. Many still check the rain when it falls, wondering if they'll ever see those strange, gelatinous blobs again. And while the scientific community continues to debate possible explanations, the truth about what happened in this small Washington town during those 3 weeks in 1994 remains as clouded as the skies that delivered the mysterious substance. The case of the Oakville blobs stands as one of those rare instances where the more we learn, the less we seem to understand. It challenges our assumptions about what we think we know about the natural world, about government transparency, and about the fine line between coincidence and conspiracy. In the end, perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the whole affair is not what we know about the Oakville blobs, but what we don't know and may never know. As we conclude this examination of one of America's strangest medical mysteries, we're left to wonder, in a world of advanced scientific knowledge and surveillance technology, how is it possible that something like this could happen without explanation? And if it happened once in Oakville, could it happen again somewhere else? The answers to these questions remain as elusive as the strange substance that fell from the Washington sky on that August morning in 1994.